Many people only start worrying about their suspension system when the car starts clunking or feels unbalanced, but by then, it's already too late. The truth is, just a few small habits can save you thousands of dollars in costs for replacing shocks, tie rods, or bearings. Today's suspension systems are more complex and expensive than ever. A single damaged component can take down an entire assembly. But if you know how to care for it properly, keep it clean, and use the right materials, you can keep it running smoothly for hundreds of thousands of miles without spending an extra dime on unnecessary repairs. If you like practical content, please subscribe. 8. Wash your car's undercarriage regularly, especially in salty areas. Many people wash their cars often but forget the most critical part, the undercarriage. That's where all the dirt, water, mud, and especially salt, the number one enemy of your suspension and chassis, accumulate. If you live in a snowy area where roads are salted to prevent ice or near the coast with salty air, regularly washing the undercarriage isn't just about keeping your car pretty. It's about protecting your wallet. Salt can corrode metal faster than any other factor. When it sticks to undercarriage components like A-arms, shocks, tie rods, bearings, or subframes, it reacts with moisture in the air, forming rust in just a few weeks. At first, it's just a thin, reddish-brown layer, but over time, it spreads, eating away at welds and bolts. By the time you notice, parts are stuck together, impossible to remove, and break when you try to loosen them. That's why cars in snowy regions often have rusted undercarriages after just a few years, while those in dry areas last twice as long. Many people think, I don't drive on beaches or snowy roads, so I'm fine. But even parking near the coast exposes your car to salty air, which is enough to form a thin layer under the chassis. Over time, that layer builds up, and if you only wash the exterior, it stays there. When humidity is high, salt keeps corroding slowly, weakening the chassis without you even noticing. The solution is simple. Wash the undercarriage at least once a week if you live in a salty area or after rainy, muddy days. You can use a pressure washer or take the car to an automatic car wash with an undercarriage spray system. For extra protection, every few months, apply a specialized anti-rust coating to the undercarriage. This takes just a few minutes but can extend the life of your suspension and chassis by years. A clean, dry, rust-free chassis lets mechanical components work properly, makes maintenance easier, and significantly reduces noise and vibrations while driving. But if you let salt and mud build up, by the time you need to replace an entire suspension assembly or subframe, you'll understand the cost of forgetting. A single undercarriage wash costs a few bucks, but can save you from repair bills in the thousands. 7. Protect and maintain rubber components with AT205 solution. Most suspension damage doesn't come from impacts or accidents, but starts with tiny rubber parts, things most people never even think about. Components like tie rods, A-arms, motor mounts, shocks, and drive shafts all have rubber seals to reduce vibrations and keep out dirt. Over time, heat, moisture, dust, and oil cause these rubber parts to harden, crack, and tear. Once that happens, water and dirt get inside, metal parts start to wear, and the entire suspension system gradually deteriorates. Once rubber cracks, you can't patch it. You have to replace the entire assembly, costing hundreds or even thousands of dollars. That's why professional mechanics in the US often use AT205 Reseal. This clear polymer solution softens, restores, and protects rubber. Think of it like moisturizer for skin, keeping rubber components flexible and preventing them from drying out or becoming brittle over time. It's incredibly easy to use. Every few months, simply spray AT205 on the rubber parts under the car, like drive shaft boots, steering tie rods, A-arm bushings, shock mounts, or motor mount rubber. The solution soaks into the surface, keeping the rubber soft, preventing cracks, and stopping it from breaking down. A few minutes of spraying these areas can save you thousands of dollars in future shock or control arm replacements. Those living in hot climates or parking their cars outdoors should do this more often. High temperatures and sunlight dry out rubber faster, especially in summer. For cars in cold regions, salt and snow make rubber brittle, so maintaining it with AT205 is just as crucial. Many people think, my car's new, it doesn't need maintenance yet. But the early stages are exactly when you should start protecting it. When rubber is still in good shape, the solution helps maintain its elasticity for the long term, rather than waiting until it cracks to apply it. By then, it's too late. 6. Keep tire pressure at the correct level and regularly check for uneven wear. One of the surprising reasons suspension systems wear out quickly is something many people overlook: their tires. Tires don't just help the car grip the road, they act as the first layer of shock absorption. If tire pressure is incorrect, every bump from the road transfers directly to the shocks, tie rods, bearings, and suspension frame. Over time, these components wear out faster and fail sooner, all because the tires were too soft or too hard. When tires are underinflated, the sidewalls soften, the contact patch with the road grows, and the car feels sluggish while heating up faster. This not only wastes fuel, but also stretches the tire's internal rubber, creating weak spots that can crack. On the other hand, overinflated tires make the ride harsher, increase vibrations, and send every impact straight to the suspension. Even a 3 to 4 psi deviation from the recommended pressure can noticeably reduce the lifespan of tires and suspension components. The surprising thing is that many people never check tire pressure, only noticing when the car feels heavy or the warning light comes on. Meanwhile, environmental temperature can change tire pressure quickly. A 10° T difference can raise or lower pressure by 1 psi. That's why checking at least once a month is a critical habit. You should also watch for uneven tire wear. If tires wear more on the outer edges, the center, or in patches, it's a clear sign of suspension issues. It could be loose tie rods, weak shocks, or misaligned wheels. Many people just replace tires without fixing the root cause, and a few months later, the new tires wear unevenly again. The best approach is to check tire pressure against the recommended level listed on the driver's door frame or in the owner's manual, not the number printed on the tire. When inflating, check when the tires are cold for the most accurate reading. If you notice uneven wear, get a wheel alignment or dynamic wheel balancing. These services aren't expensive but make the car ride smoother, save fuel, and protect the entire suspension system. If you just learned something new, comment with the number 2. 5. Don't overload the trunk or carry heavy items unnecessarily. Many people have a habit of stuffing all sorts of things into their car's trunk: tools, boxes, large water jugs, even bricks, paint cans, or gas cylinders, thinking it's convenient to have them just in case. It sounds practical, but in the long run, this is a silent killer for your suspension system. Every car has a carefully calculated weight limit, and regularly exceeding it wears down springs, shocks, bearings, and even the chassis much faster. Think about it simply. The suspension is designed to handle the car's normal weight, plus a few passengers and their luggage. When you add tens or even hundreds of pounds of extra stuff, the force on the springs and shocks multiplies. Over time, the car starts to sag at the rear. The shocks lose their proper rebound, and the rear tires wear out much faster. Many people notice their car feels bouncy and assume the shocks are bad, when really, the trunk has turned into a mobile storage unit. Excess weight doesn't just wear out shocks, it also affects handling. When the rear is heavy, the car's center of gravity shifts backward, making the front end lighter. This causes less precise steering and longer braking distances. In an emergency braking situation, this can be extremely dangerous. Plus, constantly carrying heavy loads increases fuel consumption, meaning you're wasting gas and damaging the car at the same time. I once had a customer who was a scuba diving instructor. He always kept several heavy air tanks in his trunk. After just 2 years, his rear shocks were completely shot, and the A-arms were bent, forcing him to replace the entire assembly for nearly $500. If he had simply removed the extra weight or used a light truck for hauling, his car could have lasted years longer. The simplest way to protect your suspension is to keep the trunk as light and tidy as possible. Only keep essentials like a toolkit, a small water bottle, and emergency supplies. Every month, open the trunk and check for anything unnecessary. Remove it right away. Remember, every extra pound adds stress to the suspension system. 4. Change power steering fluid regularly to avoid dirty fluid. Many people diligently change their engine oil and air filters, but completely forget about another critical component: power steering fluid. This fluid works quietly every day, making the steering wheel turn smoothly and keeping the steering system running well. But if it gets too dirty or runs low, you're unknowingly shortening the life of both the power steering pump and the steering gear, two very expensive car parts. Power steering fluid doesn't just transmit force, it also lubricates and cools the entire system. Over time, it absorbs dust, moisture, and metal particles and oxidizes due to high temperatures. When it gets too dirty, it turns dark, sometimes almost black, and becomes an abrasive. Instead of protecting, it starts wearing down internal components, causing the power steering pump to whine, the steering to feel heavier, or even fail completely. Many car owners only notice the problem when it's too late. The steering feels heavy, or a whining noise appears when turning. By then, changing the fluid won't help anymore. The power steering pump operates at over 1,000 psi, and if the fluid is dirty, friction increases, generating heat and wearing everything out faster. When the pump or steering gear fails, replacement costs can reach thousands of dollars, while a fluid change costs just a few bucks. In reality, power steering fluid doesn't need to be changed too often, about every 6 to 7 years, or when you notice it changing color. But you should never skip it. When replacing, always use the exact fluid recommended by the manufacturer, as each car has different requirements: red ATF fluid or clear specialized fluid. Never mix different types, as this can damage rubber seals or clog valves in the system. A quick tip: every time you change the engine oil, pop open the power steering fluid reservoir and check it. If the fluid smells burnt, looks dark, or has debris, it's time to flush and replace it. For extra care, you can siphon out the old fluid and top it off with fresh fluid a few times to gradually clean the system. 3. Lubricate shock mounts annually to prevent cracking. Many people focus only on shocks and springs, overlooking a small but critical part of the suspension system: the shock mounts. These are the rubber components at the top of the shocks that absorb vibrations and keep the car stable when driving over potholes or rough roads. It sounds simple, but if the mounts dry out, crack, or deteriorate, the entire suspension system becomes unbalanced. The car starts making clunking noises over bumps, the steering wheel vibrates more, and the ride feels stiff and uncomfortable. Shock mounts consist of a metal core surrounded by rubber, which secures the shock to the car's frame. Over time, heat, rain, and dirt cause the rubber to dry out and crack, especially in cars often parked outside. When the mount cracks, every jolt causes the metal inside to hit the car's body directly, creating loud noises and wearing out nearby components faster. In worst-case scenarios, a fully torn mount can cause the shock to pop out of place, which is extremely dangerous at high speeds. Replacing shock mounts isn't cheap, as it requires removing the shock, compressing the spring, and reassembling everything. A new mount costs a few $dozen, but labor can. 2. Always use high-quality parts and avoid cheap components or quick struts. Many people are shocked when they hear the cost of replacing shocks, bearings, or tie rods, and their first instinct is to search online for cheaper alternatives, thinking, something temporary will do. But this is a mistake that causes the suspension to fail faster and ends up costing twice as much later. Choosing high-quality parts not only makes the car ride smoother and safer, but also determines the lifespan of the entire suspension system. The market is flooded with cheap parts, especially quick struts, pre-assembled units that include the shock, spring, and mount. They seem convenient. Just remove the old assembly, bolt on the new one, and you're done. No need to compress springs or do complex alignments. But the problem is that most cheap quick struts use low-quality materials. The springs lack proper elasticity, and the damping fluid inside is unstable. As a result, the car might feel smooth for a few months, but then it starts clunking, vibrating, or even losing balance in turns. Many people don't realize that shocks and struts bear the heaviest load in a car. A cheap strut doesn't just fail quickly, it also affects road grip, braking distance, and control during cornering. For cars with complex suspension systems, even small differences in spring stiffness or shock compression can cause the car to lean, tires to wear unevenly, and other components like bearings and tie rods to take on abnormal stress. Cheap parts carry another big risk: poorly machined dimensions. Even a few millimeters off in a bolt hole or bushing can cause parts to fit improperly, leading to vibrations and rattling noises. That's why many cars fitted with budget struts return to the shop within weeks due to new clunking sounds. If you plan to keep your car for the long haul, invest in genuine parts or trusted brands like KYB, Monroe, or Bilstein. They cost a bit more, but they offer stability, durability, and safety in return. On the other hand, if you buy cheap parts to get by, you'll likely need to replace them sooner, paying for extra labor and alignment costs. 1. Get your wheel alignment checked regularly. Many people think wheel alignment is just about keeping the car driving straight or preventing tire wear, but in reality, it's a key secret to making your entire suspension system last twice as long. Every time you hit a pothole, climb a curb, or brake hard, those forces directly affect the wheel angles. Even a slight misalignment can put the whole suspension system, tie rods, bearings, even shocks, under constant twisting stress. When the wheels are out of alignment, you might notice the steering wheel tilting slightly, the car pulling to one side, or the steering feeling heavier than usual. But what most don't realize is that misaligned wheels are a silent killer of the suspension system. The uneven load causes rubber components and ball joints to wear unevenly, leading to cracks, wear, and looseness. Uneven tire wear is just the visible part. Underneath, a whole set of components is getting worn down day by day. A car with wheels misaligned by just a few degrees can cause uneven stress on the front shocks, leading to worn seals and oil leaks tens of thousands of miles sooner than normal. Tie rods and ball joints, constantly under skewed pressure, loosen up faster, creating a clunking noise over bumps. If you keep driving like that, the suspension system loses balance, causing steering wheel vibrations, instability at high speeds, and even the risk of losing control in sharp turns. The solution is super simple. Get your wheel alignment checked every 6 months, or, after replacing tires, hitting a big pothole, or working on the shocks. With today's technology, garages with laser or 3D camera systems can align your car to factory specs in under 30 minutes. The cost is a fraction of what you'd spend replacing shocks or tie rods, but the benefits are huge: smoother driving, even tire wear, better fuel economy, and significantly less strain on the entire suspension system. A durable car isn't just about a strong engine. It's about an owner who knows how to care for it properly. By maintaining rubber components, keeping tire pressure correct, avoiding heavy loads, changing power steering fluid regularly, washing the undercarriage often, and choosing quality parts, you can keep your suspension system running strong for hundreds of thousands of miles. If you think I should keep covering this topic, comment 1 below.